The rain poured down like bullets on the fancy hotel windows. Inside the biggest room, a man in an expensive suit was crying like a baby. His name was Daniel, and he was one of the richest men in the city. But right now, he looked like the poorest person in the world. "Please, Rose, please don't leave me," he begged on his knees. His expensive clothes were wrinkled and dirty from crawling on the floor. "I know I lied to you, but I love you now. I really, really love you." The woman standing by the door was not what you would expect to see with a billionaire. Rose was a big woman with kind eyes that were now filled with tears and anger. She was holding a piece of paper in her shaking hands, a contract that would change everything. Daniel's friends stood in the corner, looking ashamed. They had never seen their proud friend like this, broken, desperate, and begging like his life depended on it. But what made Daniel fall so hard for Rose? And what was in that contract that made Rose so angry she was ready to walk away from millions of dollars? Comment below where you're watching from. Let me take you back to where it all started. 3 months earlier, Daniel Rodriguez was sitting in the most expensive restaurant in the city with his rich friends. Daniel was 32 years old and owned half the buildings in town. He had never lost a bet, never backed down from a dare, and never met a challenge he couldn't win. "Daniel, you think you're so tough," laughed his friend Marcus, waving his golden credit card in the air. "But I bet there's something even you won't do." Daniel put down his glass of wine that cost more than most people's rent. His dark eyes sparkled with interest. "Try me, Marcus. You know I never say no to a bet." Marcus smiled like a cat that caught a mouse. "I dare you to marry the fat waitress from Tony's diner downtown. You know, the one who serves us when we go slumming." The other men at the table started laughing and hitting the table. They all knew Rose from the little restaurant. She was sweet and kind, but she was big and poor. Everything their world said was wrong for a man like Daniel. "That's easy," Daniel said, not even thinking about it. "What do I get when I win?" "If you marry her and stay married for 6 months," Marcus said, "we'll each give you $1 million. That's $5 million total." Daniel almost choked on his wine. Even for a billionaire, $5 million was serious money. But it wasn't really about the money for him. It was about winning. "And if I lose?" Daniel asked. "You won't lose because you'll never do it," laughed another friend named Victor. "You're too proud to marry someone like her." Those words hit Daniel like a punch in the face. Nobody called Daniel Rodriguez a coward. Nobody said he couldn't do something. "You're on," Daniel said, standing up and shaking hands with each of his friends. 6 months married to Rose, and you each owe me $1 million. The men laughed and cheered, thinking it was all just a joke. They never thought Daniel would actually go through with it. But they didn't know Daniel like he knew himself. When he wanted something, nothing could stop him. The next morning, Daniel woke up in his giant house and looked at himself in the gold-framed mirror. He was tall, handsome, and rich. Women threw themselves at him everywhere he went. Dating Rose would be like playing a video game on easy mode. "This will be the easiest money I ever made," he said to himself. Daniel put on his most expensive clothes and drove his shiny red sports car to Tony's diner. The little restaurant was nothing like the places he usually ate. The chairs were old, the floor was cracked, and everything smelled like fried food. But when Rose came to take his order, Daniel felt something strange happen in his chest. Rose was not like the skinny models he usually dated, but there was something beautiful about her smile. Her eyes were warm and kind, like chocolate on a cold day. When she laughed at something a customer said, her whole face lit up like sunshine. "Can I help you, sir?" Rose asked politely. She seemed nervous because Daniel looked so fancy and out of place. "Actually, yes," Daniel said, turning on his most charming smile. "I was hoping you could help me with something very special." Rose raised her eyebrows. Rich men didn't usually ask her for help with anything. "I'm new in town," Daniel lied smoothly, "and I don't know anyone. I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner with me tonight." Rose looked shocked. She looked around the restaurant like she was checking if this was some kind of joke. "Are you serious?" she asked. "Very serious," Daniel said. "The most expensive restaurant in town. My treat." Rose bit her lip. She had never been to a fancy restaurant in her life. Part of her wanted to say yes, but something felt wrong. I don't know, she said slowly. I don't even know your name. Daniel Rodriguez, he said, holding out his hand. And you're Rose, right? I've heard you're the kindest person in this whole neighborhood. Rose blushed when he said that. Nobody had ever called her kind before. They usually just called her fat. Okay, she said finally. One dinner. But I choose my own food, and I pay for myself. Daniel laughed. Deal. As Rose walked away to serve other customers, Daniel felt proud of himself. This was going to be easier than taking candy from a baby. But something strange happened as Daniel watched Rose work. She remembered every customer's name. She brought free soup to an old man who looked hungry. She helped a mother calm down her crying baby by making funny faces. For the first time in his life, Daniel saw someone who was truly good to other people, not because she wanted something back, but just because that's who she was. That night, Daniel picked up Rose in his sports car. She had put on her best dress, which was still cheap compared to what Daniel was used to. But when she smiled at him, Daniel felt his heart do something weird. Wow, this car is amazing, Rose said, looking around at the leather seats and gold details. It's nothing, Daniel said, but he felt proud that she liked it. At the restaurant, other people stared at them. Daniel was used to people staring at him because he was rich and handsome. But tonight, they were staring because they couldn't understand why someone like him was with someone like Rose. Daniel felt angry at the stares, which surprised him. He had never cared what people thought before. Are you okay? Rose asked, noticing his angry face. Perfect, Daniel said, forcing a smile. Tell me about yourself, Rose. Rose told him about working at the diner to help her sick mother pay for medicine. She talked about her dreams of opening her own restaurant someday where she could feed homeless people for free. She talked about books she loved and movies that made her cry. Daniel found himself really listening instead of just pretending to listen like he did with other women. Rose was smart and funny and caring in ways that none of his rich friends were. What about you? Rose asked. What do you do? Daniel almost told her the truth about being a billionaire, but something stopped him. He was enjoying being treated like a normal person instead of a walking bank account. I'm in business, he said. Nothing too exciting. After dinner, Daniel walked Rose to her small apartment building. It was in the poor part of town with broken streetlights and cracked sidewalks. Thank you for tonight, Rose said. I had a really good time. Me too, Daniel said, and he was surprised to realize he meant it. As Rose started to go inside, Daniel called out, Rose? She turned back. Yes. Would you like to go out again tomorrow? Rose smiled that sunshine smile. I'd like that very much. As Daniel drove home to his mansion, he felt confused. The bet was supposed to be about tricking Rose and winning money from his friends. But he had actually enjoyed spending time with her more than any date he'd been on in years. It's just part of the plan, he told himself. I need to make her like me so she'll marry me. That's all this is. But deep in his heart, Daniel knew something was changing, and it scared him more than any business deal he'd ever made. Over the next few weeks, Daniel and Rose went on many dates. He took her to movies, walks in the park, and small restaurants where she felt comfortable. Daniel learned that Rose loved old books and spent her free time reading to kids at the library. He learned that she made the best chocolate cake in the world and that she cried during sad movies. He learned that she had never been outside the city because she couldn't afford to travel. So Daniel started taking her places. He said he had business trips and invited her along. They went to the beach where Rose saw the ocean for the first time. They went to the mountains where she touched snow with her bare hands. Each time Rose experienced something new, her face would light up with pure joy. Daniel found himself caring more about making her happy than about winning the bet. You're different from other men I've met, Rose told him one evening as they walked by the lake. How so? Daniel asked. You actually listen when I talk, Rose said. And you don't try to change me. Most men look at me and see all the things they think are wrong. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He was lying to her about everything, and here she was thanking him for being honest. Rose, he started to say, wanting to tell her the truth. But then Rose did something that stopped his words completely. She took his hand and said, "I think I'm falling in love with you, Daniel." Daniel's heart stopped. No woman had ever told him she loved him for who he was as a person. They always loved his money or his cars or his houses. "I love you too," he heard himself say, and the words felt more true than anything he'd ever said in his life. That night, Daniel drove home in a panic. He was supposed to be playing a game, but somehow the game had become real. He really did love Rose, and she loved him back. But he was still lying to her about everything. 2 months into their relationship, Daniel knew he had to propose to Rose to win the bet. But now he wanted to marry her for real reasons, not just for money. He bought the most beautiful ring he could find and planned the perfect proposal. He took Rose to the place where they had their first real conversation, a bench by the lake where they had talked for hours about their dreams. "Rose," Daniel said, getting down on one knee as the sun set behind them, "you've made me happier than I ever thought possible. Will you marry me?" Rose gasped and covered her mouth with her hands. Tears ran down her cheeks. "Yes," she cried, throwing her arms around him. "Yes, yes, yes." As Daniel put the ring on her finger, he felt like the luckiest man in the world. But he also felt like the biggest liar. The wedding planning happened fast. Daniel paid for everything, telling Rose he had been saving money for years. Rose didn't question it because she trusted him completely. Daniel's friends thought the whole thing was hilarious. They kept making jokes about how Daniel was really committed to winning the bet. "Just remember," Marcus told him at his bachelor party, "you only have to stay married for 6 months. Then you can divorce her and collect your $5 million. But hearing those words made Daniel feel sick to his stomach. The thought of leaving Rose after 6 months felt like cutting off his own arm. Daniel and Rose got married in a small ceremony with just Rose's family and a few friends from the diner. Daniel told Rose his family lived far away and couldn't come. After the wedding, Daniel moved Rose into a bigger apartment. He told her he had gotten a promotion at work. Rose was so happy and grateful that she cried. "I can't believe this is my life now," she said, spinning around in their new living room. Daniel watched her and felt his heart break a little bit. She was so happy with simple things. She didn't need millions of dollars or fancy cars to be excited about life. Living with Rose was different from anything Daniel had ever experienced. She cooked him breakfast every morning and packed him lunch like a real wife. She asked him about his day and listened to his fake stories about his fake job. But Rose also challenged him in ways no one ever had. "Why don't you have any pictures of your family?" she asked one day. "We're not very close," Daniel lied. "That's sad," Rose said. "Family is the most important thing in the world." Rose also noticed that Daniel seemed to have a lot of money for someone who claimed to have a regular job. "How can you afford all these nice things?" she asked when Daniel bought her an expensive necklace. "I've been saving for a long time," Daniel said. "I want to give you everything you deserve." But Rose shook her head. "I don't need expensive things, Daniel. I just need you to be honest with me." Those words hit Daniel like a punch in the gut. Rose was asking for the one thing he couldn't give her: honesty. 3 months into their marriage, Daniel was walking on air. He had never been so happy in his entire life. He loved coming home to Rose's cooking and her stories about her day at the diner. He loved how she sang in the shower and how she fell asleep reading books. He even started to forget about the bet completely. The money didn't matter anymore. He just wanted to be married to Rose forever. But happiness never lasts forever, especially when it's built on lies. One evening, Daniel came home to find Rose sitting on the couch with a strange look on her face. "How was your day?" Daniel asked, giving her a kiss like always. "Interesting," Rose said in a voice that made Daniel's blood run cold. "What do you mean?" he asked. Rose picked up a newspaper from the coffee table. On the front page was a picture of Daniel at a business meeting. The headline read, "Billionaire Daniel Rodriguez announces new hotel project." Daniel felt like the world was ending. "So," Rose said quietly, "when were you planning to tell me that you're one of the richest men in the city?" Daniel opened and closed his mouth like a fish, but no words came out. I can explain, he finally said. Can you? Rose asked, standing up. Can you explain why you've been lying to me about everything for 3 months? Can you explain why you married a poor fat girl when you could have any woman in the world? The way Rose said poor fat girl broke Daniel's heart. She said it like she believed that's all she was worth. It's not like that, Rose, Daniel said desperately. I love you. I really, really love you. But you lied to me about everything, Rose shouted, and Daniel had never heard her raise her voice before. Your job, your money, your family, everything. How do I know your love isn't a lie too? Daniel reached for her, but Rose stepped back. Don't touch me, she said. I need time to think. Rose grabbed her coat and walked toward the door. Where are you going? Daniel asked. To stay with my sister, Rose said without looking back. I can't even look at you right now. As the door slammed shut, Daniel sank onto the couch and put his head in his hands. How had everything gone so wrong so fast? Daniel spent the next week calling and texting Rose, but she wouldn't answer. He went to the diner where she worked, but her boss said she had taken time off. He was going crazy without her. Food didn't taste good. Sleep didn't come. Nothing in his big empty mansion mattered without Rose there to share it with. Finally, Daniel decided to go to Rose's sister's house and beg her to listen to him. But when he got there, he found something that made his blood freeze in his veins. Rose was sitting on the porch with Marcus, his friend who had started the whole bet. Daniel, Marcus called out when he saw him. Perfect timing. Daniel walked slowly toward them, feeling like he was walking toward his own execution. What's going on? Daniel asked, though he was afraid he already knew. Marcus smiled his cruel smile. I was just telling Rose here about our little bet. You know, the one where you win $5 million for staying married to her for 6 months. Daniel watched Rose's face turn white as paper. Is it true? Rose whispered. Daniel looked at Marcus, who was clearly enjoying every second of this. Rose, let me explain, Daniel started. Is it true? Rose screamed, jumping to her feet. Daniel closed his eyes. There was no point in lying anymore. Yes, he said quietly. It started as a bet. But Rose, I swear to you, it became real. I love you more than anything in this world. Rose started crying so hard that her whole body shook. You married me as a joke, she sobbed. You married me to win money from your rich friends. I was just entertainment for you. No, Daniel said, stepping toward her. It wasn't like that. I mean, yes, it started that way, but what? Rose yelled. But you decided the poor fat girl was good enough to keep around for a while? But you thought you might as well collect your money before you threw me away. I was never going to throw you away, Daniel shouted back. I was going to tell my friends the bet was off. I was going to stay married to you forever. Rose laughed, but it was the saddest sound Daniel had ever heard. How can I believe anything you say? She asked. You've been lying to me since the day we met. Marcus was watching all of this like it was a movie made just for him. Well, this has been fun, he said, standing up. But I should go. Rose, it was lovely meeting you properly. Daniel, I'll be expecting my $1 million back since you clearly lost the bet. After Marcus left, Rose and Daniel stood staring at each other in the growing darkness. I trusted you, Rose said quietly. I gave you my heart, and you used it to play games with your friends. Rose, please. No, Rose said, holding up her hand. I can't do this anymore. I want a divorce. Those 4 words hit Daniel harder than any punch ever could. Don't say that, he begged. We can work this out. I'll do anything. Rose shook her head. There's nothing you can do, Daniel. You can't take back 3 months of lies. As Rose walked into her sister's house, Daniel felt his knees give out. He sank down onto the porch steps and began to cry like he had never cried in his entire adult life. He had won every bet, every challenge, every business deal in his life. But he had just lost the only thing that ever really mattered to him. And it was all his own fault. But this is just the beginning of Daniel and Rose's story. What happens when a man who has everything realizes that without love, he has nothing at all? 2 weeks passed, and Daniel looked like a ghost of himself. His expensive suits hung loose on his thin body because he had stopped eating. His eyes were red and empty because he couldn't sleep without thinking about Rose. His giant mansion felt like a prison. Every room reminded him of Rose. The kitchen where she had cooked him breakfast. The living room where they had watched movies together. The bedroom where she had told him she loved him. Daniel's assistant, Patricia, was worried about him. "Mr. Rodriguez," she said carefully, "you haven't been to any meetings this week. The board is asking questions." Daniel was sitting in his office staring out the window, but he wasn't really seeing anything. "Cancel everything," he said quietly. "Sir, you have the Johnson contract signing today. It's worth $50 million. "I don't care," Daniel said. "Cancel it all." Patricia had worked for Daniel for 5 years, and she had never seen him like this. He used to care about money and business more than anything. Now he acted like none of it mattered. "Sir, is this about your wife?" Patricia asked gently. When Daniel heard the word wife, he put his head in his hands. "She's not my wife anymore," he whispered. "She filed for divorce yesterday." Patricia's heart broke for her boss. She had met Rose a few times, and she could see how happy Rose made Daniel. She had never seen Daniel smile the way he smiled when he talked about Rose. "Maybe you should try talking to her again," Patricia suggested. Daniel laughed, but it sounded more like crying. "She won't see me," he said. "She won't answer my calls. She won't read my letters. She's done with me, and I don't blame her." That night, Daniel did something he had never done before in his adult life. He got drunk. Really, really drunk. He sat in his home bar drinking expensive whiskey and looking at pictures of Rose on his phone. Pictures of her laughing at the beach. Pictures of her trying cotton candy for the first time. Pictures of their wedding day when she looked so beautiful and happy. "I'm so sorry, Rose," he said to the pictures. "I'm so sorry. But pictures can't forgive you," and Daniel knew he had lost Rose forever. The next morning, Daniel woke up on his bathroom floor with the worst headache of his life. He looked at himself in the mirror and saw a stranger. His hair was messy, his face was pale, and his eyes looked dead. He heard his doorbell ring over and over again, but he ignored it. He didn't want to see anyone or talk to anyone. He just wanted to disappear. But the ringing didn't stop. Finally, Daniel dragged himself to the front door and opened it. Standing there were his 5 friends: Marcus, Victor, James, Anthony, and Robert. The same friends who had made the bet that ruined his life. "Daniel, you look terrible," Victor said. "Good," Daniel said, trying to close the door. "Now go away." But Marcus pushed the door open and walked inside with the others following. "We need to talk," Marcus said. "There's nothing to talk about," Daniel said. "You won. I lost the bet and I lost my wife. Are you happy now?" The friends looked at each other uncomfortably. They had come here expecting to see the old Daniel proud, strong, and ready to make another bet. Instead, they found a broken man who looked like he might fall over. "Daniel," James said carefully, "we didn't think you actually cared about her." Daniel's eyes flashed with anger for the first time in weeks. "Care about her?" he shouted. "I love her more than my own life. She was the best thing that ever happened to me, and you idiots helped me destroy it." "Hey," Marcus said defensively. "This was your choice. We just made a bet. You're the one who decided to lie to her." Daniel grabbed Marcus by his expensive shirt and pushed him against the wall. "You told her about the bet," Daniel screamed. "You went to her house and told her everything just to hurt me. I thought she already knew." Marcus lied, but Daniel could see the truth in his eyes. Anthony stepped between them. "Stop it, both of you. Fighting won't fix anything." Daniel let go of Marcus and sank into a chair. All the anger left his body, and he just felt tired. "You're right," Daniel said quietly. "Nothing will fix this. I destroyed the only good thing in my life." Robert, who had been quiet until now, sat down next to Daniel. "Do you really love her?" he asked. "More than anything," Daniel said without hesitation. "Then fight for her," Robert said. Daniel shook his head. "I tried. She won't even look at me." "You tried talking," Victor said, "but you haven't tried showing her." Daniel looked up at his friends. What do you mean? James smiled for the first time since they arrived. We mean it's time to show Rose who you really are. Not the liar who tricked her, and not the rich guy who thinks money can buy everything. Show her the man who fell in love with her. How? Daniel asked. Marcus, who had been feeling guilty since the day he told Rose about the bet, stepped forward. We have an idea, he said. The next morning, Daniel took a shower, put on clean clothes, and ate his first real meal in 2 weeks. His friends had given him an idea, but it was dangerous. If it didn't work, he would lose Rose forever. But if he didn't try, he would lose her anyway. Daniel drove to Tony's diner where Rose worked. He had been there many times in the past 2 weeks, but Rose always ran to the back when she saw him coming. Today was different. Today, Daniel wasn't going to ask Rose to talk to him. He was going to show her something. Daniel walked into the diner and sat at his usual table. Rose saw him and started to head for the back room like always. Rose, wait, called Tony, the owner of the diner. You need to see this. Rose stopped and turned around. That's when she saw what Daniel was doing. Daniel had brought a huge pile of papers with him. He was signing them one by one and putting them in different stacks. What are those? Rose asked Tony quietly. I don't know, Tony said. But that young man has been signing papers for an hour. Curious despite herself, Rose walked closer to Daniel's table. Daniel looked up and saw her coming, but he didn't smile or try to talk to her. He just kept signing papers. Rose could see some of the papers as Daniel signed them. Her eyes got wide when she saw what they were. Property deeds, stock certificates, bank transfer forms. What are you doing? Rose asked before she could stop herself. Daniel looked up at her with tired but determined eyes. I'm giving it all away, he said simply. Giving what away? Everything, Daniel said, signing another paper. My houses, my cars, my businesses, my money. All of it. Rose's mouth fell open. Are you crazy? Daniel stopped signing and looked directly at her. I'm giving it to charities, he said. Children's hospitals, homeless shelters, food banks. All the places you told me you wanted to help but couldn't because you didn't have enough money. Rose sat down across from him without thinking about it. Daniel, you can't do this. This is your whole life. No, Daniel said quietly. You were my whole life. This stuff is just things. But why? Rose asked, her voice barely a whisper. Daniel put down his pen and looked into Rose's eyes. Because I want you to know that the bet never mattered, he said. I want you to know that I would give up everything I have just to prove that I love you. Not your body, not what you can do for me, but you. Your heart, your soul, your beautiful mind. Tears started falling down Rose's cheeks. You're giving away billions of dollars, she said. Money can't love me back, Daniel said. Money can't make me laugh or hold me when I'm sad or challenge me to be a better person. You did all of that. Rose wiped her eyes with her sleeve. This doesn't change what you did, she said, but her voice was softer now. I know, Daniel said. I lied to you, and I hurt you, and I'm sorry every single second of every single day. But Rose, I need you to know that falling in love with you was the most real thing that ever happened to me. How do I know you're not lying now? Rose asked. Daniel picked up the last paper and showed it to her. It was the deed to his mansion. Because I'm giving this to the homeless shelter where you volunteer, he said, signing his name. And because I'm moving into a small apartment and getting a regular job, just like I told you I had when we met. Rose stared at him. You're really going to live like a normal person? I'm going to live like the person I should have been from the beginning, Daniel said. The person you made me want to be. Rose was quiet for a long time, just looking at Daniel and the huge pile of papers he had signed. This is crazy, she finally said. Probably, Daniel agreed. But loving you made me a little crazy. Despite everything, Rose felt herself smile just a tiny bit. What if I still can't forgive you? She asked. Daniel's heart hurt, but he had expected this question. Then at least you'll know that I meant it when I said I love you, he said. And all this money will help a lot of people who need it more than I do. Rose looked around the diner. Everyone was staring at them, but she didn't care anymore. "Daniel," she said slowly, "you really hurt me. I know. You lied to me about everything. I know. You made me feel like a fool. I know, and I'm sorry." Rose took a deep breath. "But," she said, and Daniel's heart stopped beating. "I think the man who would give away everything he has just to prove he loves me might be worth forgiving." Daniel couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Does that mean?" he started to ask. "It means we start over," Rose said firmly. "No lies this time. No games. No bets. Just two people trying to figure out if they can build something real together." Daniel felt like he was going to cry again, but this time from happiness instead of sadness. "I would like that more than anything in the world," he said. Rose reached across the table and took his hand. "Hi," she said with a small smile. "My name is Rose. I'm a waitress, and I like to help people." Daniel laughed and squeezed her hand. "Hi, Rose," he said. "My name is Daniel. I used to be rich, but now I'm just a guy who's crazy in love with a waitress." 6 months later, Daniel and Rose stood in the same small church where they had gotten married the first time. But this wedding was different. This time, there were no lies between them. Daniel had kept his promise. He had given away almost all his money and was working as a manager at a small business. He lived in a tiny apartment and drove an old car. But he had never been happier in his life. Rose had slowly learned to trust Daniel again. It wasn't easy, and there were many nights when she cried about the hurt he had caused her. But Daniel was patient. He never rushed her or made her feel bad for needing time. He proved his love in small ways every day. He brought her coffee at work. He listened to her dreams. He helped her start a program to feed homeless people at the shelter. He never once complained about his new simple life. "Are you sure you want to marry me again?" Rose asked Daniel as they stood at the altar. "I'm still the same poor fat girl you met at the diner." Daniel cupped her face in his hands. "First of all," he said loudly so everyone could hear, "you're not fat, you're beautiful. Second, you're not poor, you're rich in all the ways that matter. And third, you're not just some girl, you're the woman who taught me what love really means." The whole church cheered when Daniel kissed Rose. Even Daniel's 5 friends were there, crying like babies. They had all learned something from watching Daniel's journey. Marcus had donated $1 million to charity. Victor had started volunteering at a soup kitchen. They realized that the bet had changed all of them, not just Daniel. After the ceremony, Daniel and Rose danced to their favorite song while everyone watched. "Do you ever regret it?" Rose asked as they swayed together. "Giving up all that money?" Daniel looked into her eyes and smiled. "Rose," he said, "I spent my whole life collecting things that didn't matter. Money, cars, houses, none of it made me happy. But loving you and being loved by you makes me feel like the richest man in the world." Rose laughed and spun around in her wedding dress. "Besides," Daniel added with a grin, "we're going to be just fine. I heard Tony wants to make you manager of the diner, and I got promoted at work. We might not have millions of dollars, but we have each other." "And that's enough?" Rose asked. "That's everything," Daniel said, and kissed her again. As they danced, surrounded by friends and family who had watched them overcome lies and betrayal to find real love, Daniel thought about the bet that had started it all. His friends had dared him to marry Rose to win money. But in the end, the real prize wasn't money at all. The real prize was learning that love isn't about what someone looks like or how much money they have. Love is about finding someone who makes you want to be the best version of yourself. Love is about trust, honesty, and choosing each other every single day. And most importantly, love is about realizing that having everything in the world doesn't matter if you don't have someone special to share it with. Daniel had won the greatest bet of his life. The bet that true love could conquer anything. Even the deepest lies. Even the worst betrayal. Even the biggest mistakes. As the music played and Rose laughed in his arms, Daniel knew that this was his real happily ever after. Not because he was rich. Not because he was handsome. But because he had learned to love someone with his whole heart, and she had chosen to love him back. 1 year after their second wedding, Daniel and Rose sat on the porch of their small house. watching the sunset. It was the same porch where Rose had once told him she wanted a divorce, but now it was filled with love instead of heartbreak. "I have some news," Rose said, putting her hand on her stomach. Daniel looked at her and gasped when he understood what she meant. "Really?" he whispered. "Really?" Rose said, crying happy tears. Daniel picked up Rose and spun her around, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. "I love you, Mrs. Rodriguez," Daniel said. "I love you too, Mr. Rodriguez," Rose replied. As they held each other in the fading light, Daniel thought about how different his life was from a year ago. He had less money, a smaller house, and an older car. But he had Rose's love, a baby on the way, and the knowledge that he had become the kind of man he could be proud of. Sometimes the best bets are the ones where everybody wins. And sometimes losing everything you thought you wanted is the only way to find everything you actually need. The end. Thank you for watching this incredible story of love, betrayal, and redemption. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel to support our growth and see more amazing stories like this one. Comment below. What did you think of Daniel and Rose's story? Have you ever had to choose between money and love?